well as hydrotherapy and some other home remedies. So if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to talk to me afterward. You can always shoot me an email at health@fairplainadventist.org.
So I have the privilege of introducing our seminar speakers. Most of you have already met James Hartley. I'm pretty sure all of you have been through last evening's presentation and the service. But there's another couple that I haven't mentioned yet, at least today, and that's Ron and Karen Lynch. I'm going to ask that you just stand up for a moment and just kind of wave to everyone. Ron and Karen Lynch work with James and the Light Ministry. How many years have you been with Light? About 4 years, almost 4 years they've been with Light. Before that, Ron and Karen used to own two health food stores. And they also, within one of those health food stores, had a restaurant. And he did that for probably about 15 years. That is a serious time frame to do that. And that is no easy job. Stocking shelves and ordering food and trying to figure out all that marketing. And anyways, so a lot of wealth of experience there in the health food and the restaurant work. And praise the Lord for your guys' willingness to come. Karen also, she's been in, currently has a show on 3ABN. It's the 3ABN Cooking Today, I believe is the name of the show. And she has a series of programs on there that people enjoy that are aired there. And so we're thankful that you are also here with us. They are responsible for the North America territory in which Light is involved with. So if there's an event like this, which is in North America, they would kind of be one of the groups that would come and help facilitate those meetings. They work a lot in Canada, etc., and the United States, and travel to churches all around the country. So we're just glad that you're joining us here today and throughout this program. We're really excited about it. And we'll go ahead and begin with a word of prayer as Ron will be presenting to us next. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to come together to commune with you and to learn about you and the important work of ministering to those around us. And we thank you, Lord, for the example of disinterested benevolence that you gave us. And it's our prayer, Lord, that we would exemplify that character of disinterested benevolence. Be with us today, Father. Guide the words that Ron and Karen are going to share with us, and James. And it's our prayer that each of us could walk away having learned something that would draw ourselves closer to you as well as others to your kingdom. We thank you for hearing this prayer and pray for your Spirit in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope no one's going to fall asleep on us today after having such a wonderful lunch. At Wildwood, we have what we call very efficiently a digestive walk. Sometimes on Sabbath afternoon, we have what we call a digestive nap. This is a delight and a pleasure to be here with you today, and we're excited. I know when we first looked at the weather report, and it said it's going to be a little cool up there, so we were a little nervous, because where we're at now, it's already hitting into the 90-degree range, so very, very warm down there. But what we found this morning that was very refreshing up here, beautiful sunshine, beautiful family that we've known. Many people are already here, so it's a blessing to be here. And today, I'm going to be spending just a few short minutes on talking about door-to-door evangelism. James hit on in the service kind of a little bit of how Christ ministered one-on-one with people. What a blessing it would have been if you were like Nicodemus and that opportunity that you had to have a one-on-one conversation with Jesus. How about the woman at the well? Jesus spent a lot of time working very specifically with certain individuals. And think about this. he was extremely busy, was he not? I mean, he had to do the work of what we would consider a lifetime and do that in just 3.5 short years, right? So it is something that we need to find, like everything else in life, a very good balance in how to work with this. And a lot of people say to me, well, they're kind of nervous when they talk about going door to door. One of the things I did not mention is that also in my prior life, I also did some co-porter work with their evangelism, and in that you do a little bit of door-to-door knocking occasionally. So this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Before we get started though, let's invite the Holy Spirit to be with us again. Our kind and gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you today for your bountiful blessings. We just pray that you guide us and you direct us. We pray that you give us the courage to go out and meet our neighbors and our friends, Heavenly Father. You know, you give us such a wonderful opportunity to go out and be a part of this service, and we're so thankful for that. So we just pray that you'll be with us today. Guide us, direct us, in the loving name of Jesus. Amen. I'd like to start with a quote from Volume 8 of the Testimonies. And we said, the Lord calls for pastors and teachers, and I have those called, here we go, and evangelists. From door to door, his service are to proclaim the message of salvation. We're told that we're to go door to door. You know, he was just mentioning that Karen does some programs on 3ABN. We spent a good amount of time up at 3ABN, enjoy 3ABN, love the staff there, they're beautiful people. I believe that they have kept true to the Word. I think that they do a tremendous thing there. There's a lot of media outlets and things like that. One day I had a chance and I was talking with Kenny Shelton, and I told him, I said, you know, I really appreciate what you guys do, but you know what? If we were doing what we were supposed to be doing, you wouldn't have to be doing what you're doing. It's our job. We're told that everyone, no matter what our occupation is to be a medical missionary. So it doesn't matter whether you're, you know, a construction worker. It doesn't matter if you're working in laundry. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor. All of us are to be medical missionaries. But it seems to be, to me, kind of like a lost art. People just simply don't want to do door to door. And there's a various amount of reasons for this. Some of it is that they're kind of nervous. But a lot of it, what I find is that many people want to do something. They want to get out and they want to help. And a lot of people don't want to be up front. And I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those people. I don't enjoy being up front that much. But I know that we have a message to share to the world. And you see, there are things that we can do that will increase our success. If you go out and you spend 5 hours in trying to minister to people, wouldn't you like to see some success out of that? Thank you, no. 120 years he preached about the coming of the flood, but it was just his family. He didn't get a lot of return on his investment of time, did he? But as someone who's owned businesses, I like to see success. But you know, the interesting thing is that success comes from Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ alone. But he gave us a specific method. And James was hitting on that today. And so I would like to kind of go over that in just a little bit more depth right now. In the Ministry of Healing, page 143, we find an interesting little quote called Christ's Method. Is anybody here familiar with that? Okay, good. I like that you see that. It says that Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. So I'm going to ask you, right here in your church here today, are you guys looking for a successful campaign right here in this Fairplain church, here in this Benton Harbor Township, in the St. Joseph's area here? Are you guys looking for this kind of success? Would you like to see your church busting out with the seams and having another church having to be built right down the street. Now, I happen to know that you have many churches, obviously, in this area. But wouldn't it be nice to see them growing faster and quicker, right? Well, here is what Jesus did. It says that the Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. Now, what does it mean to mingle? Do you think that Jesus simply saw people in the synagogue and then he was done? Or did he go out and find people one-on-one, similar to some of the things that we talked about, some of those experiences, right? Many experiences we find that Christ went out to meet the people. Now, he did mingle, obviously, in the church as well, but he also went outside. Then, it says, he showed his sympathy for them. Let me ask you a question. As believers in the faith, do we have something of value that we could share with others that we come in contact with? How about for example, the health message? Do you know anybody who is suffering from diabetes, heart disease, hypertension? Listen, if I was to ask, every hand in this room would go up. And I can tell you where Karen and James and I come from, we see on a regular basis people reversing these illnesses by using simple treatments. And the reason that I bring that up is because you should be excited about that. This is something that you have to offer, and this is something we will be learning over the next few days, that there is something that you can do to be directly involved in helping people on a very simple way. And it says, then he won their confidence. Can you see how that works? We're told that if we were to help people, that their mind would say, there's something valuable that I learned here. Maybe there's something else worth investigating. Is that possible? And then and only then, at the end, Jesus said, follow me. My question to you here this afternoon is, sometimes do we rush to try to make Christians? Are we interested in trying to, if you will, pull them into our church? You find that that's the last step in what Christ did. Now, I believe that there's a time and place for everything. So there is a time and place to talk to somebody very direct right off the bat. But I believe that the Holy Spirit should be impressing you if that's the case. Otherwise, I really believe that we should not be so much engaged in trying to make conversions. When I was a youngster, I could tell you, and by the way, I guess you can tell from my dialect that I'm from the South. My wife is from the North. Sometimes we have a problem in communication. If you don't understand the word I'm saying, raise your hand and Karen will translate, okay? But, you know, I remember being back in these younger years and talking to people about the Sabbath. And I could give them a study. I could start right there in Genesis, go through Exodus, I could go to Revelation, come back and end up in Isaiah. We're all one big happy family, right? I've been to battle every time. But most of the time I lost the war. You see, they weren't ready to hear what I was trying to say. And so this is what we're going to go through, just a few steps this morning to try to say, well, try this. This is part of Christ's method that we want to work with here today. So I want to ask you this morning, how are you known? How is this church, Fairplain, known here in this community? How specifically are you known here in this community? You know, Gandhi, a very powerful religious leader, made a comment once. He says, I love your Christ, but I don't like your Christians, because your Christians are not like your Christ. Now we heard James talking about this morning in the church, right? The character of Christ. Christ Object Lessons tells us, page 360, when the character of Christ is perfectly reproduced in his people, he can come and claim them as his own. That's what Jesus is waiting for our characters to be ready. So what does that mean to have our characters? Well, part of it is exactly what James was saying this morning. It's about going out and sharing. Now, as a church, we don't believe in righteousness by works. We believe in righteousness by faith. Amen? But that faith causes you, if there's something that it gives you this excitement to want to go out and share and be a part of something bigger and better. What if Gandhi had run across a Christian or two that might have actually practiced what they preached? Could he have changed an entire nation? Because he had a nation of followers. See, part of the problem is that we really want to go out and tell people exactly what we know. This is what I was doing when I was giving my dissertation on Sabbath keeping. People really don't want to know how much you know. They really want to know how much you care. As I talk to someone now, if they ask me why I go to church on Saturday and not on Sunday, my explanation now is because I love Jesus. It's not a dissertation on Bible text. We can get to that if they're interested. But it gives us a nice even playing field. It puts us in a different position. It's just simply a matter of rephrasing something that I was already saying. But they didn't care about how much I knew. And so, in the community that you have here, how are you now? Do you care about each and every individual? There's a little story. It goes something like this. A young man was walking with his mother down the beach and saw lots of starfish on the beach. And he seen that they were struggling. He was trying to get back in the water. But they couldn't get back there. They were tired and exhausted. They couldn't get back. And so he takes and he picks up one starfish and he tosses it back. And so his mother says to him, "You can't save all those starfish. You can't help all of them." And he says, "No, but I helped that." But I want to tell you something. What I have found, and I know that, in fact, I met a nice young man this morning who's getting ready to be a pastor, already doing some internship, I believe. He's got a big task ahead of him. I can't speak for the Lake Union Conference because I'm not a member here, and I honestly did not have the time to go and do the statistics on this. But the statistics in most conferences is that every pastor has about 80 to 100,000 people
in his parish. Do you think the pastors can handle that by themselves? No. Is that a possibility why we are told as lay members that we are supposed to be actively involved? I don't work for the conference. I'm not pastoral staff. I am you who decided to do something different with my life. And I was already actively involved. Karen and I both were actively involved in our church. But we said we wanted more, and we decided we were just going to step out in faith. And I'm going to tell you something. When you drop 6 figure incomes to go do nothing, that's something. But I'm going to tell you that God has blessed us in ways that you can't imagine. I was telling James some stories coming up here. Make the hair stand. Oh, no, I don't have hair. But it would make you see if we see things and we see blessings that most people don't receive. And it's powerful. And that's the blessing for us. And you see, when you go door to door, when you go one-on-one with your church and you're starting to get new people, you will find that Savannah, Georgia. Anybody ever been to Savannah, Georgia? We were down on River Street having a great time, enjoying life and everything. And I have a brother who's a financial planner, very successful. And we're down there, and I see this gentleman, and he's digging through the trash can looking for something to eat. Now, my brother doesn't seem to have a big interest in going to church anymore, so he just doesn't go. Now, me, I'm a Christian, right? I'm the one going to church. Well, that was my thought. My thought was, man, that guy should have probably not been drinking last night. If he hadn't been doing drugs, he probably wouldn't be eating out of that trash can. My brother goes over to this guy, slips him a lot of money, and says, buddy, you don't need to be eating in the trash can. Go get yourself something to eat.
It was terribly painful. Because I, who was supposed to be the Christian, wasn't being a Christian to my people who needed to be helped. Christ ministered first to people. James mentioned this morning that Jesus did more healing than he did teaching or preaching. Not only did he do more of it, if you notice oftentimes that was done first. And it's done that way if you look in the formula of Christ's method alone, right? So, Christ ministered to people. I believe we can do both. You see, we should give the man something to eat first. You put that analogy into your ministry thought process. But then we can teach him to fish. Okay? Let's do it in the right direction, okay? There should be connected with our mission. Because you're saying, listen, I need to go talk to somebody today, chalk up a number for myself. Your thought process might need to be just skewed and readjusted just a little bit. We should go out because we care about people. That's what Jesus did. And I'm going to tell you something right here. Karen and I have been involved in prison ministries. I was talking to somebody last night who was involved in prison ministries. It's all by the grace of God that we're not in the same boat as anybody else. We're all on the same planet. We're all going down. We're in the same sinking boat. It's only through the grace of God that we're here this morning. Amen? So when we think about other people, remember we are Christ has already started working some in our lives. Many would be willing to work if they were taught how to begin. I have found this to be true. When Karen and I go to different churches around the United States, we find that people, they're excited. When you talk theory, when you do this presentation right here, people listen, right? But that's about it. It's when you actually physically get started going and doing something. So I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to put something, I'm getting a time thing. How much time I got left? Oh, I'm in good shape today. Okay, so the thing is that when people start doing, it starts becoming real. So I'm going to put something out here for you. Karen and I are going to be here for a week. If you want me or Karen or both of us to put together and let's form a little unit and go out and physically go do what I'm talking about today, I'm good with that. Karen's the scheduler. We got a lot going this week, so it would be tight to fit in. But I can tell you, we can make something happen if your church is interested in doing that. Every church should be a training school for Christian workers. Its members should be taught how to give Bible readings or Bible studies, how to conduct and teach Sabbath school classes. He's talking coming up here. You know, we just coming out of this pandemic. Many people in most places aren't coming to church in the numbers that they were. What happens when this happens again? Having little groups that you can have Sabbath school, where you could take maybe one of your classes out once a quarter and go down to the public park and do some singing in Sabbath school and do that and being where people are at. Because people, when you start singing and having Sabbath school in the park, somebody might get interested and come over and listen. Sometimes they don't. But many times, Karen, I've seen them come over while we're doing that in the park. And to help the poor and to care for the sick. There should not only be teaching, but actual work under experienced workers. Okay? Talking about the pandemic, we have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of medical missionary work. You see, when things start to crumble, we're told that the medical missionary work is the last work that will be in our church. So if you want to be something, if you want to call, quote, job security, it's a great place to be. You know, there's going to be people with pain and suffering from now until Christ comes. And I'm afraid it's only going to get worse. I mean, we've just started seeing just the beginnings of what's going to happen. So we need to find some ways to gear ourselves into this line of thinking. Okay? And she goes on to say, to hide our light at this time would be a terrible mistake. But what happened during the pandemic? Was we out sharing our light? I'm sure some people were, but for many people, a lot of people just kind of was, I've got to take care of me. It's a me first kind of mentality. And I believe we kind of got to switch that around. Again, thinking, how can we care for people? And you're wondering, well, how does this mean anything to going about door to door? We're going to tie this together here in just a second. Introduce no strange doctrine into your message, but speak simple words of the gospel of Christ, which young and old can understand. So she doesn't go out saying, all right, let's make a bunch of doctrinal Seventh-day Adventists. Let's go to the house and give them everything we know, right? They're not ready for that quite yet. She says, don't teach them in this way. Okay? So like I said, if the Holy Spirit is impressing upon you on a specific person or something, that would be advisable. But for the most part, we should keep this on a very simple, and what I like to call friendship evangelism. Okay, we should keep this where we are starting to develop friends. Just a quick example of that, Karen and I were in, we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we were visiting, we were visitors there, and there was another couple that were visitors there. We started talking, had a wonderful lunch together, and before you know it, they knew we were going to be coming through. They lived in El Paso, Texas. They invited us to stay with them when we come through. We made that good of friends just over a Sabbath lunch. If we would talk to, quote, the people that are out there with the same enthusiasm, with that type of integrity, to where there wasn't a feeling like, what are they trying to get from me? What do they want from me? That goes a long way into establishing trust, you see. Now, when Karen was talking about Odessa, Texas, that's right here. Let's remember that there is practical religion and a good loaf of bread. I had done a class like this, and I thought that it was more of a question and answer kind of thing, and I felt like I had went over the class fairly well. And this lady comes up to me and she says, Ron, I got a neighbor friend of mine. I'm pretty sure she uses drugs and drinks alcohol. She can't really keep a job much, and her family's all shattered. How do I speak to her? And I will tell you the words that I said to this lady, quoting them. Didn't we just make a healthy loaf of bread? She said, yes, we did. said, take that bad boy, put him in a plastic bag, take it over to her house, and say to her, hi, I'm your neighbor up the street. I've been meaning to come by for a long period of time. But you know, things just got, and I apologize, but I made this healthy loaf of bread, and I was thinking you might could use this for your family. And I said, you're done. That's all you got to do. Just go and be a friend. I says, now if she asks questions, then you should be prepared, and you should be able to handle that. But just stop right there. All you have to do on your first introduction and meeting someone is simply try to make a friend. Find something, somehow, some way to find things in common with people. There's a great book put out by Mark Bentley, what I like about such and such in the church, right? You should learn some of that. You know, because like, for example, we have things in common with Jehovah's Witnesses, we have things in common with all these churches, you see. We need to find commonalities. Commonalities unite and make a bridge. God expects his servants to cultivate their voices so that they can speak and sing in a way that all can understand. It is not a loud singing that is needed, but clear intonation, correct pronunciation, and distinct utterance. Let's all take time to cultivate our voice. You know, when you're greeting someone, if you kind of got this sour look and a sour voice, you know, is that going to be attractive? As Christians, we should be excited. By the way, what are the first three fruits of the Spirit? Love, joy, and peace, right? We should have joy in our hearts. We shouldn't go around looking like the frozen chosen. I mean, we need to be happy people. But you see, how you say something is very important to people. You see a picture of this lady right here? She just found out that the way she heard it was that salvation cost $1 million, and she didn't have $1 million. It was terrible to her. But what this lady heard when the folks spoke was that salvation was a free gift from Jesus. You see, how we say the same thing is very important to how people are receiving it. How do you want the people to hear what you're saying? Again, I think the problem is that we try to take it, and I think you're going to be in here and you're going to think, he's going to say something great. He's going to say something that's going to give me... No, it's simple. It's being yourself. It's finding your way to share Jesus and what he's done for you. By the way, your testimony is your most powerful weapon. Now, for your church specifically, I'm going to recommend that you guys, and I do this for churches, if you're going to get a group of people together going door to door, and you're going to see, because the next couple of classes are going to deal with like health expos, health clubs, and ideas that your church can do to help draw in your community, right? So if you're going to do this, I believe that you should start setting some goals for yourself. How many people do you feel like we should talk to? You know, how many people, because you know, in sales for every yes you get, you usually have to go through about 20 no's, right? So you have to talk to some people. Everybody's not interested in what you're selling, right? Obviously in those days, they weren't interested neither. But so you have to go through a lot of dirty rocks to get to diamond. And I'm not trying to make this in a non-spiritual, I want you to take this in a spiritual context. Everyone is valuable. So we need to take that time and sift slowly. Okay? We need to find out more about them, but we need to set some goals for the church. And what I mean by that is you have certain strengths in your church, right? You know, well, we got this amount of hours that we can take, you know. We have a lot of different strategies. And what Karen and I find to be very successful with this is the cycle of evangelism. So when you know you're going to be coming with an upcoming event to put into the cycle of evangelism, when do that, that's when you go out and start talking to your community. Now, I recommend making a name for your group. People are always going to want to know who you're with and what you're doing. So if you're telling them, listen, I'm with Positive Solutions for Fairplain, or whatever your name is going to be, you have something, and this gives you credibility as well. So people like to know that you're with a good, positive organization. Now, I'm not here to suggest that we're not trying to let people know who we are, but sometimes there can be barriers. Going back to 3A again, Danny tells the story time and time again. We talk about the Sabbath all the time. Everybody knows we're Seventh-day Adventists. We talk about it, but people don't always hear what you're telling them. So you want to put forward a good face for people and have a great plan and strategy. That's something, again, we can work with if the church is interested. One of the things that we find to be very helpful, a helpful tool, is a community survey. I have listed here a community health survey. There are multiple types of surveys that you can make. And I would recommend that a church or a group, even within the church, because you can have multiple groups, especially this size group of people, that you can have groups, and they can have, like these surveys that would be, responsive to how you are, how your church is. So in this one right here, it kind of goes over a few questions. And by the way, I think that a health survey, if you're going to somebody's house, should be extremely short. If you tell the folks we only need 3 to 5 minutes of your time, you should only take 3 to 5 minutes of their time. Let's stick with the program. See, we want to do everything all at one time. And I'll tell you, I have found many times when folks have come across, that I've come across, and they'll say, oh, you're stuff that I met one 20 years ago. He was the nicest guy. And that's a great thing when it happens. But some of you may have come across somebody and said, boy, he was cross, and so, they didn't have that great experience. We need to know that it's the Holy Spirit that convicts people's hearts. It's not us. So when you're gathering with people, what my recommendation is to always just make that meeting as friendly as possible. Make friends. Try to make friends with this person, right? Be very kind to them, and do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to have a short 35-minute survey, that's great. Now, in a health survey, see, the Spirit of Prophecy tells us that the health message is what? To the gospel. Right on, right? Why is that? Anybody want to venture a guess and tell me? Okay, strength is work. Could it possibly be that the health message actually breaks down barriers? You see, if I'm talking religion and you're talking religion, and we're on 2 different pages, we're not on the same page, are we? But if we're talking health, if I know something about diabetes, and you have diabetes, and I have something positive to share, and believe me, I have lots to share about diabetes. If you have diabetes, does that put us on the same page? Yes, it does, because everybody wants to know what they can do a little bit better. Why we get into science? All right, I'm wrapping it up. By the way, I'm not the talker in the group, so I don't know if you guys would need to get a pill after this or what. So one of the things about doing a community health survey is that you can actually, and what we're trying to work with right now is folks to become health coaches. This little booklet right here, and this is something that Light puts out, and I will tell you, it's actually become one of my favorite little books. And that is, what this does, is this puts into play the laws of health. And as a health coach, this is something that I can, when I'm taking this type of survey right here, and a person says, I'm struggling with diabetes. Well, you know what? We've got a little book right here. And you know what? If you will do these steps, I know people. Now, you need to, if you say that, you really need to know people. I do. I know people who have reversed their diabetes by using these simple steps. if you like, I could leave this with you, and next week I could come back and check on you and see how you're doing with it. Now, you're involved with this person for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Friendship evangelism. It's a great connecting tool. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but I really appreciate James and the group that they put that together for churches. That it's just simply amazing that you can take something and you can study this out for just a few minutes and you can say, oh, guess what? Here's the thing on exercise right here. Why don't I meet you in the park next week and we'll go for a walk? You can become someone's friend. This isn't a great tool, in my opinion. James may say something different. It's not a great tool for me just to hand to you and say, here, go do this. This is a great tool of being one-on-one, interactive with other people in your community. And I'll tell you, there have been, James can tell you more about that, but I believe how many was 10,000, James, did you say? You know, like 10,000 people in Mexico that they passed these out to and started working, and they had this. Do you know any of the stats on that or anything? I don't.
3,500 Bible studies, several hundred back.
It's absolutely amazing. Just something very simple. Is my time up?
Wow.
I got 5 minutes. I'd like to read this in closing, if I can. If I don't have enough time, I won't. But, okay, good. All right. Because I don't even have another event after this, so I know I need to move on. All right. In the book, Evangelism, page 293, there's an interesting parable about berries. Has anybody read that? All right, well, most everybody's read that, so if they've read that, I'm just going to do just a short summary then, and I'll sit down and let somebody else speak. What she says is, if I was trying to pick berries the way you're picking berries, well, I guess it just wouldn't pan out to you because you're not really looking right, you know what I'm saying? They're right there. They're right in front of you. They're falling from the tree onto the ground. They're right there. And you're not picking anything up. But she said, if you will go out and change your methods just a little bit, there are plenty of berries, hint, people, right, that are looking for the word. They're there. They're right. They're ready to be picked. And I will tell you, in this age that we live in of health, there's a lot of restaurants and stores are picking up with aisles of health foods and stuff like that. All right, so we dropped the ball a little bit there because that was our message, right? But guess what? Let's just take that and use it, right? Because now that they have that part of the component, now they're looking for the spiritual part of the component. Because the health message is the right arm to the gospel, that means that the two need to be intertwined together. And so now that they're starting to get there, that's a great segue to move forward into step 2 of trying to help people to find a closer walk with Jesus. Okay? Any quick questions or comments? And if not, I will turn it over to our next speaker. Okay, well, I guess I will go close down then. And if you have any questions later or one-on-one, or if you, like I said, if you guys want to develop some health surveys, or yes? James brought some, I believe, and I think we probably have some. Over the next week or whatever, we will deal more in that aspect of it. Okay? Thank you, and God bless you, and we will look forward to seeing you guys for the rest of the week. Mic on. We're going to switch mics here real quick. supposed to be an audio tape. I don't have this problem here. Oh, it's fine.
Quick switch, right?
I'm gonna stand behind you for this class.
We're gonna hold the mic for me. Thank you. Good?
I won't be in stage, stand back.
Got me? Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm gonna say good afternoon. Because I know that we've now transitioned from Ron's morning presentation, right? About 20 times, but it's all good.
I knew what I meant.
I can get away with that because I'm married to him, right? So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Lynch, obviously. I'm Ron's wife. And today we're going to talk a little bit about a great tool that a church can do for their community. It's called the Health Expo. Has anybody actually been involved with the Health Expo before? Not many, right? Well, I'm going to tell you, this is such a successful tool, and I think it's a tool that can actually really be personalized or customized, let's call it, for the communities that we live in. You know, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to just give you a bit of an overview. Not a great overview. I guess it's pretty good, but an overview of what a Health Expo is, and then some of the components. But also, let's talk a little bit about what may work in your community here. Is Benton? Benton Harbor. Okay, Benton Harbor. Because I know Fairlawn is just a portion of Benton Harbor, right? All right. So the Health Expo training. Right here, this is just a picture of some of these Health Expo banners. Now, these are banners that kind of identify some stations at the Health Expo. So we're going to talk a little bit about that just in a minute. So what actually is a Health Expo? Just fix my computer here. So Health Expo, as it says here, is a positive way to respond to human suffering. Obviously, we know in this age, as Ron was talking about, and as we all know, people are not well. People are sick. We know that we have ways that God has given us, natural ways, to be able to respond to people's needs, right? So it's a positive way to help relieve suffering. It's practical and effective, okay? It reaches our communities when there's a need of people to have struggling with diseases that are preventable with lifestyle, and also reversible many times with lifestyle. Okay. So, in other words, we need to work as Jesus worked. And Ron just went over this, but what did Jesus do? He mingled with those who wanted help, didn't he? He went and found the people. He didn't sit and wait for the people to come, did he? Although when he was around, they were coming, right? Because that news spread fast. But he mingled with them. He went to the towns. He traveled from place to place to place. He got acquainted with their needs. He was very personal. One-on-one, he talked to people. Ron talked about that tool, about meeting someone, that light up your life booklet, how you can become personal with somebody. If you've spent 7 weeks with somebody, helping them with a health issue that they had, and giving them some positive ways to make a change for the better. Do you think we get to know them for 7 weeks? Even if it was just an hour a week, right? It becomes personal, right? You become friends. Right? Because you genuinely have an interest in them. You want to know them. You want to know them better. And you want to be able to help them. Because, sometimes we have an issue, but there's a lot more layers to that, right? About why. You kind of want to ascertain that issue. Then, of course, we want to look for means to help them. How can we help them with this, right? Then it brings that friendship and a trust between you, of course. And then, at that point, when you have a relationship with somebody, they recognize that there's something different about you. And of course, what is different about you? Jesus Christ, right? And so they're going to want to get to know you, because they're going to realize all the information, all the things that you cared about them. There's a special part of you that you gave to them that's going to turn around and they're saying, you know what, they know all this stuff and they cared enough about me. I want to know them better now too, don't they? So, in Testimonies to the Church, Volume 9, page 168, we read, Christ is no longer in the world in person, is he? To go through our cities and towns and villages healing the sick, that he has commissioned us to carry forward the medical missionary work that he began. In this work, we are to do our very best, she says. So, we have a responsibility, don't we, to carry on the work that Jesus did. James brought it up. Jesus, what did he do? He healed in his ministry more than he actually preached. Now, it's kind of a concept, but as we look through the Gospels, we see that that's the documented, of course, there's volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of stories that we don't even know about in Jesus' ministry. However, the ones that we read about, we see so much about him relieving the suffering of the people. We have a work to do, and we need to do it. Well, like the wonderful thing about what we can do is we can actually, at a health expo, help people prevent disease, and actually, if they're not well, help them reverse it. You know, some of the big diseases, well, most common causes of death, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes. Again, Ron had mentioned this. All of us know somebody who has struggled with something like this, haven't they? So, well, here's some interesting facts. Let's look at this. If a community adopts health principles promoted at the Health Expo, those 8 laws of health that we'll talk about just in a minute, their death rate for cancer and cardiovascular disease could drop 60 to 70%, and 70 to 80% for cardiovascular disease. So 60 to 70% in cancer. If you had a community of people who adopted the health principles that we'll talk about in a minute, the things that we promote as a church to reach people through a message of health, you could change those statistics. Can you imagine that? Those are big statistics. Longevity could be increased by 6 to 12 years with a better quality of life. So incorporating the things that they could learn at a health expo could do this for them. Medical costs would be greatly reduced. Well, isn't that obvious? If you don't have to go to the doctor, you don't have to purchase medications, you're not in all these things, then of course your medical costs would be reduced. In manuscripts 55 from 1901, remember that the restoration of the body prepares the way for the restoration of the soul. And this is, of course, what we see when we're going to dovetail off of James, and we're going to dovetail off of Ron, in saying that the right arm of the gospel, right? That the health message is a way for us to reach people, help relieve their suffering, and care about them. And it will open the door for us to reach them and let the Lord and the Holy Spirit work on their heart. Evangelism, page 515. When you make the people intelligent concerning the principles of health reform, you do much to prepare the way for the introduction of present truth. Said my God, educate, educate, educate. The mind must be enlightened for the understanding of the people is darkened. Satan can find access to the soul through perverted appetite, to debase and destroy. You know, there's stories I can tell you where you can do Bible studies with people, and then you come back and they don't even remember or have a clue about what you had talked about. And maybe that's because of the things they're eating. Their mind's clogged. You know, if we are putting in, my dad used to always say garbage in, garbage out. If you put in, in a computer bad, code, right? You don't get a computer program, it's a mess, right? But if you put bad food in your body, you're not going to be able to bring out healthy. And so the mind is so affected by the things we eat. Even just simply teaching people about a healthier way of life. I'm losing my... And that is true too, but you know, that's actually even in our own church, that we have people that, if we have a hard time hearing the Lord speak to us sometimes, imagine people out there who don't even hear some of the health message that we know. So, goodness gracious me. All right, here we go. I'll try one more time here. This is not working for me. Oh.
Want the hand up?
What? I can put the hand out and think about it. I think I need that. It's my hair. I must have a big head. I don't know. Something wrong here. And I have little ears. Very little ears. So I always have trouble with these head mics. I don't know what happened to the... I've lost everything. All right. James, to the rescue. All right. You can hear me now, definitely, right? All right. So you can understand that if we can't always hear the Holy Spirit talking to us, imagine if somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to understand about fresh air or sunshine, or even incorporate any of that in their life, right? Counsel on Help, page 533. Take hold of the medical missionary work, and it will give you access to the people. Their hearts will be touched as you minister to their necessities. As you relieve their suffering, you will find opportunity to speak to them of the love of Jesus. That is all what it's about, isn't it? It is about introducing people to Jesus Christ. And if we want to follow Christ's example, and we see here, and Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. It's Matthew 9:35. So why do we do health expos? Well, I'm not going to read this again, but Christ's method alone. We talked about it in one of my first slides, right? He mingled with the people and all this. This is how we can bring ourselves into our community with a health expo. So, anybody can be a part of a health expo. Just because it says a health expo doesn't mean that you have to be a medical professional. Although there's a lot of times that being a medical professional can aid in that because you have some understanding and you can be able to contribute in another way. But you don't have to be a medical professional to be a part of any part of a health expo. And you'll see with that because we're going to go over that and all the booths. All right, this is a beginning of a cycle of a friendship. You know, if you started doing a cycle of evangelism, you could start with a health expo. At that health expo, you're going to meet lots of people in the community who come for maybe some health screenings, right? And then when you're meeting with them, talk and say, hey, you know what? We are doing a cooking class on healthy living. I want to give you an invitation. Please come. It was a free event. It's right here in our community hall here at the, behind the church. We have a school here, and we've converted that to it's going to be a wonderful time. We'd love to have you come. And you know what? And after you get to know them a little bit better, you might have another seminar. What if you have a stress seminar, a seminar on stress, okay? Or some other kind of seminar. And then maybe more spiritual health. There's many ways that we can bridge different things that we're doing through the church and continue a cycle of evangelism. A lot of times we'll go to churches and they'll say, oh, we're doing a evangelistic series. And they do an evangelistic series, and it's great, and it's successful, and people are there, and then we wait. And then we do another program, and we do another thing, right? And then we wait. And then we do, but what we need to do is bridge these events. We don't want to lose people who have a desire to know truth, to have a desire to know more. And so when we begin, even something as simple as a health expo. So many health expos can be just a one-day event. A one-day event, it could be about, usually on a Sunday seems to be very effective. And the reason why is because most people are off work on a Sunday. It's a weekend. We can do this, just for 3 or 4 hours. And you try to find a large public place. The Health Expo, I think I've done them in parks. I've done them, at the mall. You can pick a place where there's a lot of traffic, okay? A lot of people walking around, and to get them interested. A community center, advertise it at a community center. You could even do it here at the church. I said, sometimes though, we find that when Ron says, breaking down the barriers, sometimes people who may have maybe a religious affiliation, a background in another faith, sometimes have a hard time walking in the parking lot of another church. They just feel like, oh, they're going to try to convert me. No, we're not. We're here to reach them, through health. And of course, as they get to know Jesus, we want them to know Jesus is really the bottom line, right? But that doesn't mean that we are out here trying to evangelize them. We're trying to teach them about better health is what we're doing. This picture is actually a group of students at one time that had done a one-day event in a Walmart. Can you imagine? The Walmart, not even the Walmart parking lot, they were right in the Walmart. The Walmart said, go ahead, you can do that. They put up a couple of the signs and talked about health. Isn't that great? You have to be creative. You have to be creative. All right, so how many people does a health expo need? Well, if you think you're going to have about 200 people, you need about 45 volunteers. Most of the time, I'm going to tell you, you're going to go out, unless you are in a real vibrant, big, very, community that is really engaged with this, you might not get that many people. But usually about 100, you can probably, about 20 people, I always say, a church needs. So you need 20 people who are willing to commit to doing one little piece of the Health Expo. So let's talk a little bit about the Health Expo. The Health Expo really embraces the 8 laws of health. And we know that, and we know the WEMAR's acronym NEWSTAR, right? Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, fresh air, rest, and then of course, trust in God, right? So this makes that acronym NEWSTAR. And who doesn't want a NEWSTAR, right? The basic setup of a health expo, we don't have to go over this too much because we're not doing a health expo here, but you can see you have a welcome booth, you start people out with nutrition. Now, you don't always have to go in the order of NEWSTART, because sometimes that doesn't always flow as easy, but you can put this together so you have like a nice flow for where people can go and get to know a little bit about each of these 8 natural laws of health. You can notice that rest is a very large group. Now, it's not because we're letting them take a nap. We're actually, and it's probably the most popular booth there, it's because part of rest, we actually advocate for massage. Who here likes a massage, right? Who wants a 5-minute back massage? Every person's going to line up, and that's what happens. So, all right, and here, this is just some of the activities that you can do. Now, these can be flexible, and I'm going to give you an idea after I go through the booths about maybe something that another direction a health expo can go into. So nutrition, how about the body fat testing? You can do height and weight, and then you can talk a little bit about good nutrition, about the standard American diet. I always talk, and I always do this in my cooking classes, standard American diet. What is the acronym of the standard American diet? SAD, S-A-D. I like to introduce people to a GLAD diet, because nobody wants to be sad, they want to be glad, right? And that's God's living abundant diet, that's what I call it, right? Do we want abundant life? A life that is abundant in all areas, right? Well, so you can talk a little bit about standard American diet, low fiber, high sugar, high salt, fried foods, but then you can explain to them about fruits and vegetables and healthy options, right? And maybe give them a little sample of something, right? You can make something healthy and tasty, right? Because if it doesn't taste good, no one's going to eat it. That's right? So who would want to make a change in their diet if they enjoy, steak and potatoes, and you're going to give them plain black beans and brown rice unseasoned? As somebody who's interested in that steak and potato is clearly not going to want to substitute that. But can we transition people to a healthier way? That's what we need to just introduce them to, right? At the sunlight booth, blood pressure, and how important that is. We're going to talk about vital signs and things like that, and doing our vitals in our seminar. So we'll talk a little bit about that more. Water. Hydrotherapy demonstrated. All of you are going to be learning about hydrotherapy. We can actually do a demonstration. We can talk about the need for internal water and external, right? Exercise. This says the Harvard step test, but they have something called the Tecumseh step test. We can we can teach them, get their heart rate up and see how they recover from their pulse going up and down, right? Then we have a peak flow meter at the air, see how their lung capacity is. Rest, like I said, the chair massage. Then we have temperance. The temperance is the health age survey. This is where they tell you about their habits. You ask them some questions, they answer it, and then you get to tell them, with their habits, how old their body thinks they are. So this... Better? Okay, no feedback. Okay, good. So, the health age. So we can take all these questions. Do you snack between meals? Do you eat a good breakfast? We ask them all these questions, and they may say, and I can say, okay, how old are you? I'm 32. Sadly, your body thinks you're 58, okay? Or maybe they have good habits, and maybe they're 32, but their body only thinks they're 21, right? So it's interesting people want to know that statistic. And then, after they think about that, that might be where they might say, you know what, I need to make some changes. And so, of course, they go to the trust booth. The trust booth is where somebody can kind of give them the results of that, kind of talk to them about health, maybe talk to them about some spiritual things, if they had some prayer requests or things like that. But the Health Expo, I want to emphasize, is a health event. It is not an event. We want to help people, is basically what it is. But during that, we may have some specific people who really are looking for more, not only for their health, but are searching, and God had directed them to that Health Expo, right? So the health consultation, they can learn a little bit about their health, but also we can introduce them, like Ron said, with that Light Up Your Life book. Maybe if I can, like say Joanna, okay? Joanna might be able to, if I say, Mary here has diabetes and is interested in maybe learning more about making some better changes, because she just became a diabetic and she's trying to reverse this. So I'm going to introduce you, Mary, to Johanna. Johanna here has this, she can do you some health coaching with you. So they get to talk. Johanna says, maybe we can meet in the park, like Ron suggested, and we can go for a walk, and I can tell you a little bit about this health coaching. And that's how they begin. And they begin with that little Light Up Your Life book. How easy is it for us to be able to minister to people one-on-one, right? Especially when they have a desire. So, really quick, we're going to go through the booths. So the welcome booth, it's greeting people. You want the vibrant, happy people there, right? And they're the ones who are going to be engaging, and they want to invite people to come in and get this free health screening, because that's basically what it is. I call it like a pop-up clinic almost, right? Okay, so they're going to get a piece of paper that's going to kind of record all of their things. That they go nutrition, height, weight, body fat. Again, I had mentioned what we can do at the nutrition booth already. Exercise. Let me tell you a little story. When we did multiple health expos when we were in India, doing some mission work there. And one of the things, let me tell you something, we did at the nutrition booth, and I worked at the nutrition booth the whole time I was there in India. We did some blood glucose testing, okay? So we tested their blood sugar. Okay? Do you know that in the cities where we ministered to people, we actually found 6 out of every 10 people that I would meet had either diabetes or undiagnosed diabetes. Some of them with 400 and 500 sugars. Okay? And so can you imagine that these people, were struggling with this? And so we were able to minister because we had some doctors at the trust booth that were able to pray with them and talk to them about what they could do. Do you know undiagnosed diabetes? 400 sugars, could be extremely, extremely debilitating to their health, right? So understand it can be life-saving. I'm going to tell you another one too when we get to that booth. Exercise, of course, talking about the heart and heart health and things of that nature. Water, we're going to talk about, like I said, we're going to learn a lot about hydrotherapy, but the importance of drinking water, and also we can use water as a remedy. You could give out bottles of water, or water bottles, right? There's lots of things you can do at a health expo. Sunlight. blood pressure checks, okay? To bring to the attention and how simple it can be to go out and get sun, right? And be able to, and how it affects your blood pressure. Now, I do want to let you know, we were doing a health expo in Newark, New Jersey. I know my friend Carlos and his wife are not here right now, but they're from New Jersey as well. And they were, oh, you're from New Jersey too? What part?
Jersey City.
Oh, you're right around the corner from Newark, right? You know. So Newark is a pretty tough neighborhood, right? Yeah. So, interestingly, we were doing a series of programs for churches up in Newark, New Jersey, okay? And when we were in Newark, there was a person who was coming, we did this was a great thing, at a food bank, okay? Food bank, the church was doing a food bank every Wednesday. We set up a health expo at the church. So in order for them to get their food package, we asked them to come through the booths, okay? So that we were able to do health screening. See, you have to be creative, right? Somebody came in, and when they got to the sunshine booth, the person takes their blood pressure. And now, usually, nutrition and then sunshine is next, okay? Usually, they're not in the New Start order in the Health Expo. And so I'm watching, takes the blood pressure again. Waits a couple minutes, takes the blood pressure. I'm like, okay, this doesn't look good, right? Something either wrong with the stethoscope or the cuff, or something's wrong. This gentleman's blood pressure was 220 over 180, okay? He basically was a walking stroke, I would say, right? A walking stroke? So do you know that what do you think we did? Listen, I didn't just say, here, take some garlic, and we sent him to the hospital right away, okay? Because this is a man who could have died right in front of us. I mean, who knows how long he was walking around like this, right? But, I mean, tremendous, called his family, all this. He got to the hospital, 911, went, and I just want to let you know, we could have saved his life. So some of the things that you can learn in a health expo about somebody could be life-saving, okay? Life-saving. So, sunlight. Temperance, the health age. I told you about the health age, so you ask those questions, and then people, will find out their health age. Air. The peak flow meter really actually gives a way to be able to see how well somebody's lung capacity is. And so that's good. And then we give them a little chart for their age, how much they should be able to blow out, and we kind of give them an idea if they're breathing well. Rest, chair massage. Talk about stress, talking about the importance of getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, and how it affects our health and our recovery of our health and our bodies. And then trust. And of course, trust is where we do the lifestyle counseling. It's able to evaluate the results of their health age, kind of give them some information, but it's also total health literature, whether we're talking about physical health, specific diseases, as well as spiritual health. So something that I could share with you that maybe might work, I think that especially when I'm talking about inner cities, like maybe a big city like Jersey City, Newark, New Jersey, some of these big, Chicago, I'm trying to think of places around here. What's a big city in Michigan?
Detroit.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I should have known that, right? Detroit. So when you're thinking about that, some of these health expos are really effective because you're going to gather a population of people that may not be able to monitor their health well. This works really well overseas as well, too, because not everybody has health insurance and health care like we do here in this country. However, how do we incorporate a health expo in a community that people are working, maybe middle class, able to afford some health insurance, probably barely because it's so expensive, right? But how could we, do this? What if we focus on something different? And again, I don't know your community, so this is something that you, as a church, can kind of come up together. But what about if you had a really active, healthy, health-conscious, exercise-conscious community? Well, a health expo might not be, exactly the right tool. But what about if you did a health expo that was athletes-oriented, giving them tips on better performance, right? Talking about good, healthy, plant-based proteins, and carbohydrates in the nutrition, and giving them something that you can focus on to help improve their health, right? See, you can use a health expo and use those 8 laws of health to customize it to something different. So you don't have to necessarily just do disease and focusing on disease treatment, although that's good. But if you don't have a community that, a community that goes to a doctor regularly, they might not come for the screening, right? So you have to think of things through. So I want this church to have a little homework. Those who are interested in being a part of that team that takes this message of health to their community, should think about what would be effective in this community. Maybe starting with those health surveys, going out door to door, finding out what the needs of this community is. And when they and when you know that, you can build your health expo around the needs that this community is looking to do. God bless you all, and I'm going to turn this time over to James, who is going to talk about health clubs.
Hey everyone. Afternoon. Thanks Ron and Karen for sharing about those. So when I came to Wildwood initially in 2000 was when we were first developing these Health Expo banners. So it was kind of a new thing when I got there. And one thing that really impressed me is Dr. Viriato Freire, I don't know if any of you have heard of him, but he was at Wildwood in those years. And he went back to Portugal to introduce the Health Expo to the church in Portugal. And it went really big. They partnered with the government in Lisbon, and they had Johnson & Johnson financing them, and they did this massive 5-day health expo for the whole city of Lisbon, and they had over 10,000 people come through. It was just like overkill. Because what happened was they ended up with well over 1,000 interests in Bible studies. Because they had this form, that she was talking about, like from the Health Age and like an interest form, and they ended up with over 1,000 interests in Bible studies. And they realized that they had not planned on how to follow all that up. So they didn't do anything with it. The following year I went there and I said, how did it go? I was really excited. Robert like, wow, 1,000 Bible study interest from a Health Expo. We were all, excited about it. But when I asked them, they all had sorry looking faces because they said, we didn't get anything out of that. We were completely unprepared to follow that up. We asked the pastors, and the pastors were too busy and inundated with all their work that they couldn't just go chasing after all of these contacts. So it really caused us to kind of reassess why do a health expo? Is it just a nice event and people have a good time and they learn something and they get some literature and that's it? Because if you don't have a follow-up plan, it almost doesn't seem worth all the effort. So then from then on, we kind of refocused our thinking the Health Expo should really be a promotional event for another event. You have to have a follow-up already planned. If you're going to do cooking classes, already have the date set. So when they're at the Health Expo, it's like, oh, hey, why don't you come next Sunday? We're having cooking classes here. We'd love to see you here. So there's an immediate connection with it. And so, and another thing that kind of was brewing during those times was this idea of starting health clubs, which was really the best model I saw initially was in the Czech Republic, in Prague, which has several vegetarian restaurants in it, country life restaurants like the one that my friend met in Switzerland. And so Country Life Prague is a really big thing. They have a huge health food manufacturing plant, and they have all these restaurants, and then they started doing these health expos, and they're the ones that I say that they're the ones that kind of refined the health club concept. Because at one point they had 60 health clubs going on all around the Czech Republic, and it was really great. A health club is, it's just a gathering, a group of community people and church people that have a common interest in health, and they come on a regular basis. It could be different kind of times on that. I'll talk about that. But educating them, rather than just one event, but regular meetings afterwards, you're able to bring more education and you build relationships better with people. So I want to share about that because really I think the health club was really the missing link there. The years that we were just doing health expos without a connected health club that was organized we had a lot of lost interest. I remember at the end of a health expo, I used to be kind of proud. I'd give the pastor a whole stack of interest and say, okay, they bring us in, the Wildwood team does this health expo, boom, here you go, pastor, here's 120 interests. But by and large, not much came out of all of that, really. You need to have a calendar of evangelism of health events, and the health expo is I see it more of a promotional event to bring people in to promote another meeting, okay? Cooking class, health club, dinner with a doctor, whatever you want to call it. And there's some really good counsel on that. So I've got 3 statements, and then I'll share some testimonies, and then I'll give you some advice on how to start one of those. This would be actually a perfect place for something like this. So it's kind of it's good that we're talking about it. So this is a statement from Council on Diets and Foods. It says, good service can be done by teaching the people how to prepare health food. This line of work is as essential as any that can be taken up. That's a big statement. So cooking classes, something Karen and Ron are excellent at. This line of work is as essential as any that can be done. More cooking schools should be established, and some should labor from house to house, giving instruction in the art of cooking wholesome food. So we have cooking classes that draw people in, and then she even mentions educating people in their homes, teaching them how to cook. This is something that Seventh-day Adventists should be known for and should get better at, and are teaching people nutritional principles and how to cook good recipes and eat better, because it's just a really, really important, it should be an important part of our work. Helps people a lot, brings us closer to them, helps them to be more healthy, and it's really, it just transitions so well into them learning about Seventh-day Adventists. Continuing that statement, it says, many will be rescued from physical, mental, and moral degeneracy through the influence of health reform. And that's in the context of teaching cooking classes. Right? These principles will commend themselves to those who are seeking for light, and such will advance from this to receive the full truth for this time. So you start with food, right? And it's just an easy icebreaker. And to fellowship around some food, to talk about food and all that, it's just like a good icebreaker. You get to know people, and it just opens up doors, and it's very natural for them to be like, so what do you guys, who is this, and what are you guys doing, and what do you think on this? And it kind of grows from there into something that they end up learning more about us, and you got to be thoughtful on how to do that. It's kind of strategic, but that's the direction we want to go. We want to bless them spiritually as well. The second statement says, as a people, we have been given the work of making known the principles of health reform. In other places, she says that as Adventists, we should educate. This is the work of us. Our job is to educate the communities around us. In connection with our city missions, there should be suitable rooms where those who have an interest, where those in whom an interest has been awakened can gather for instruction. So she's saying, get a room, get a place, choose a location, and that you can invite people in, contacts from the cities or the community around you, and instruct them, teach them. They're just coming in for classes. So, like at Wildwood, we're teaching health classes to our health evangelism students, but then in Chattanooga, we're to be teaching people in the downtown and different areas, having classes for them, because they need to know this information too. It's not just for us. And so you're having health lectures and talks, and then food and cooking classes is an important part of it. So this, I believe, I think this statement here, this is in 9 Testimonies, is directly pointing to what I see as like a health club idea. It's having that room, it's having that place where we're giving talks, and we're giving health classes, and we're teaching cooking classes. It continues this way. This necessary work is not to be carried on in such a meager way that an unfavorable impression will be made upon the minds of the people. So when we do something like this, when we have a health club or a public meeting, it shouldn't be sloppy. It should be as professional and refined as we could possibly get. All that is done should bear favorable witness to the author of truth, and should properly represent the sacredness and importance of the truths of the third angel's message. Okay, so she's setting up a high standard. She said, she's saying classes should be good, the things should be organized, not sloppy. We should put our best foot forward, put the advertisements, the way things look, the speaker, everything you have. Just strive for the best that we can do, because this is such an important thing, because that can just open people's minds. And, oh, this is really interesting. I want to come back next week. And who are these people? And what's the Seventh-day Adventists? And they'll just start investigating. Okay, but it all starts with just, hey, I should probably lose. I could use to lose a few pounds, or I want to get a little bit more healthy, so maybe I'll check this thing out. And they just get step by step more and more interested. Last statement. This is from 8th Testimonies. It is the duty, the positive duty of God's people to go into the regions beyond, let forces be set at work to clear new ground, to establish new centers of influence wherever an opportunity can be found. Rally workers who possess true missionary zeal, and let them go forth to diffuse light and knowledge near and far. So notice that phrase, their centers of influence. That's a phrase that's being used a lot today in the church. So a health club definitely would be a center of influence. It's an educational center for the community that is making an impact. It's making an influence. It finishes by saying, let them take the living principles of health reform into the communities that to a large degree are ignorant of these principles. Let classes be formed and instruction be given regarding the treatment of disease. So it's not only food, not only cooking classes, it's a huge part of it, but there needs to be health education, teaching people how to live to prevent disease, teaching people how to eat, take care of themselves, to reverse degenerative diseases. That is a great work for Seventh-day Adventists, and really I was inspired. The General Conference some years ago had an initiative. It was every church a health center, every church member a medical missionary. I don't know if you, that was like 10 years ago. That was a 5-year theme for what do they call it, a quinquennium or something. It was there. I don't know how many churches actually heard about it or did anything about it, but the GC Health team tried to make some influence there. That's how I see it. It's that every church should have some sort of, not that that's the only thing you do, but you have a health team, a health evangelism team, and you develop a plan of these things, and you're giving classes and cooking classes and so forth, and that should be a strong part of our outreach. And yeah, the Fairplain Church, you guys already have your facility here, and it's kind of interesting because your entrance is not at the same street as the front of your church. So, like, if I was here, it doesn't look like this elementary school has been happening lately. I would change that sign out there and make kind of a name for this place. Not the Fairplain Elementary School, but the Better Living Center, or the Fairplain Better Living Center, something like that. Where this is a community place. We're having classes, education, cooking classes and things. This is the place to do it. I don't think you'd have much prejudice because it's kind of connected, but it's not so apparent, like right off the right. You don't have to drive past the church to go in. I don't know really this community or what kind of, I don't know if it's like Wisconsin, though there's a lot of Lutherans and Catholics where I grew up. I don't even know what a Seventh-day Adventist is. I didn't know what a Seventh-day Adventist was. But down south, there's a lot of Baptists there. They really don't like Seventh-day Adventists too much. It's like real prejudice against. It's like, it's like they're taught from a youth, don't talk with Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, they're crazy, they believe in this prophet, and they don't drink coffee, and, they don't eat bacon, and, they're just nuts. So don't talk with them. So, there's some prejudice there. So if you have a health event, you usually don't do it at the Adventist church if you want any Baptists to come. You kind of got to trick them a little bit. So the first health expo that I was a part of, I was scratching my head trying to figure out how to reach this Baptist community. So we did it at a movie theater. It's an old movie theater that you could push the chairs back. It was like a I don't know, what do you call them, bleachers or something. Okay, it was like an old movie. So it had a marquee advertisement thing, and we promoted this health expo. We had 300 Baptists from that community coming in there. They did not know it was put on by Seventh-day Adventists. I had the pleasure of informing them of that at the end. So once they went through the whole thing, they came around, I said, y'all have a good time? Did you like it? Oh yeah, it's good, some good people. Does everybody treat you good? Very nice people here, very, very good people. I liked it. What was your favorite booth? Oh, I love the massage booth, or I love this booth. Yeah, it was great. So I said, well, I want you to know this was all sponsored by Seventh-day Adventist Church. And just, and right when I said that, their face would kind of drop. I was like, oh, you know about Seventh-day Adventists? Yeah. I know. See, I said, see, we're not so bad, are we? Well, I guess not. Yeah, okay. Well, we appreciate what you're doing, so I'm going to give them a gift with some literature and stuff. So thanks for coming. Health Track and Steps to Christ. You know. So that was just our little entry wedge into that community. So, we had a real small budget for that. It was like $300 budget. I spent I just made photocopies and cut up little tickets. We went door to door and invited people like free admission to this health expo. And then I rented that marquee. I was like half of the money. It was like $150 to rent the marquee. So it was like $300 budget. That was just when we were starting. This is way back in the beginning. The Georgia Cumberland Conference said, we want to do a health expo too. They had a $15,000 budget. Okay, so it was 300 versus 15,000, and they had television advertisements. They had fancy, they had in the newspaper, advertisements and all these, but they didn't go door to door. They had radio and all these things. They put all this money into all that stuff, but they never did the door to door. I think that hurt them. But then they did it at an Adventist church. They did it at a gymnasium right next to an Adventist church, but it was really, really clear that everyone knew what that was. So, then they invited all of Wildwood there. They had doctors and eye specialists and dentists. It was bigger than what we usually do. They put a lot of effort into it. There was 100 employees, 100 volunteers there to handle this massive health expo, $15,000 advertising budget. And I was trying to figure out how many came that day, because it was hard. It didn't seem like anyone was there. We were kind of going through the expo ourselves because we were kind of bored standing around. I think the entire day there was maybe 20 people that came to that health expo, something like that. There were just like one every 30 minutes or something. And I thought it was a real learning lesson. I was like, wow, that was a big waste of money. It didn't need to be that way. What did we just do in the same community? The one we were in with the $300, that wasn't any easier. That was the same kind of community. It was all Baptist. So the door-to-door invitation has a real power to it. And people need to kind of see things twice. So you put something out there in the community, or posters, and a door-to-door invitation, and keep it simple. Location is important. But you have to know, would the community around here come here in this room? I don't know. You can test that and see. They might. But if it's not really working, you find another place that's more neutral. And it's good for the health club as well. It may need to be in a neutral place. But we've seen this work as a springboard from Health Expo springing into these health clubs. We've got a couple other short testimonies here I wanted to share. One is from a different country. This is from Indonesia, that I think is really one of the most inspiring testimonies in the world that I've seen. It's just an amazing thing that has happened there in recent years. So we've done a lot of light trainings in Indonesia, and we've partnered with a business lady that her family's big in the palm oil industry. She's kind of a millionaire, and she got some of her other friends, and they decided they're mission-minded, and they took even our medical missionary course. So they invested money in a grocery store, a healthy grocery store. They called it Club Sihat. And it was a nonprofit. It was just for evangelism. So it's a health food store. Let's make contacts, be a witness in Jakarta. Jakarta is about 9 million people living there. It's a big city, crowded. And so this is the inside of a picture from inside of their first store, and it was going well. But while we were talking, dialoguing with them about it, the health club idea came. We said, you really need to have if you're going to reach your customers, it's nice to say, hey, here's some literature, God bless you, and they're coming through the store, but how do you develop those relationships? You might know them by name and give them some advice, but it's a little bit, you need more time. And we should follow these counsels, right? We should be having a room where we're giving classes and cooking classes. So the second floor of this business was available for rent. So I decided to rent the second floor and start a health club there and start classes. And then during the day it was easy. The advertisement was just at the store. That's all they just advertised to the customers. It was a busy place. So they had 70 people coming right from the get-go on Sunday evenings, like at 5 or 6 o'clock. Bang, 70 people. And they were doing cooking classes and health talks with Muslims and people of all kinds of religions, atheists and different kinds of Christians, just a whole mix of people were coming in there. Sometimes they would do natural remedies. I did get a picture from them. It was kind of funny. This was a clay day, I guess, where they were smearing clay on their faces. But this is the room. This is where they were. Simple, just a facility upstairs where they had a little kitchen and they could do their cooking classes. Well, this grew then into where they're doing weekend programs outside the city and doing like these little New Start lifestyle programs for like a 3-day little health retreat. They've got t-shirts, and they'd have this program, they'd all pitch in some money. And so this is a picture from one of those health clubs that went out to this place to do this little health retreat. And so, they got such friends, they bonded together, there were relationships being formed, and they wanted to invite them to church then, and so they were trying to think of how to transition this into something more spiritual. So they ended up renting the 3rd level of the same building. And they started a branch Sabbath school, which later then became a full-fledged church. It's all right, Chuck. So that was such a good model that they decided to replicate it. So they purchased a second store, and right away they thought of it. It's like that perfect plan. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. Meet them in the business. Step 1, just casual. We're just meeting like Paul met people in his tent making, or just meeting people at the health store, but then they're being invited to the health club, and at the health club, over several weeks, they're getting to know each other more, relationships are being bonded, more education, more knowledge, and so forth, and that led to step 3, up to the church. And so the second store was purchased with a second level, right away rented for the health club, and it wasn't long before there was another church started there. And then a 3rd store was purchased with a health club on the 2nd level, and another church was planted there. And then a 4th store, this is all in Jakarta, different parts of Jakarta. So a 4th store was started, and now all these stores were kind of purchasing food together. They had more purchasing power, so they could get lower prices. So they were all Club Sihat, now they have branding, and they were growing. And so they planted 4 churches, all in Jakarta, and they decided to kind of franchise the model. And so now there's over 15 Club Sihats, the last time I've checked, not all in Jakarta, in different parts of Indonesia. They have a big warehouse where they're doing all the purchasing, everything they buy in bulk, and then they send it out to all their stores. And so any Adventist family or anyone can just start up one of these Club Sihats. You've got the branding, the corporate identity, you know exactly where the whole business model, where to get the food and everything. And then they're told, this is an evangelistic thing. You're going to be sustained by this, by God's grace, if you manage it well. But this is something to reach the community. So you got to have the health education going. If God's going to bless us, it's there for as a ministry. And so now, it's having a huge impact on the church in Indonesia. So I'm just really excited about that. So the General Conference even has sent delegates there to observe this model and say, this needs to get replicated. I mean, why wouldn't this work in Rio de Janeiro? Why wouldn't this work in anywhere? Paris. I mean, this is a strong model. Health food store, health education, leading people to know about our message and our people and inviting them to church. Another place which is, you would think, well, if you think, difficult territories, you might think North Africa is a pretty challenging area. Tunisia is a little bit more open than like Libya. So we had an opening there to get in there and do some health expos. This is a picture of the first health expos that we did. We had our banners translated into Arabic, and we had a good turnout there from the community. Lots of people coming in. So immediately we had our follow-up planned. Smoking is a real big thing there. I mean, it's just heavy smokers in Tunisia. So we decided our follow-up is going to be not a cooking class. It's going to be a stop smoking seminar. It's going to go on for 2 weeks, I think it was. So this is a picture of the stop smoking seminar. All of these men are Muslims. Interesting. How many women do you see in that picture?
One.
The translator. Yeah, there's none of the attendees were women. I'm not quite sure why. But yeah, well, there's that woman sitting back there. Yeah, all the way in the back. So I don't know her role in all of that, but interesting in Indonesia, we get almost all women to our health expos. It's hard to ever get a man there. But at the Stop Smoking seminar, all men. They're heavy smokers. And they were open for help. And so we've seen this, and this is where then, through the weeks and through the meetings, we were able to, make friends with these guys. And the two missionaries that I know personally that were there, they said 3 of the men wanted Bible studies as a result of that, but they didn't want us to tell anybody. So it's kind of an undercover thing. We just gave, we met with them and we gave some Bible studies to them. You got to be careful. This place it was still hard there, not as bad as others. I remember visiting Malaysia, and just the week before I got to Malaysia to visit the church there, somebody was killed by their family members because they were studying with the Seventh-day Adventists. The family found out about it, they came in and just murdered them because they were saving them from hell. They're going to burn forever in hell. Sounds kind of familiar. Studying with Seventh-day Adventists, and so they just put them out of their misery. So it's really, really sad. So anyway, those were a couple examples. One of the best that I've seen in the Chattanooga area is our friends at the East Ridge Church, which is more within the Chattanooga area. It's connected right to Chattanooga. It's a part of it, really. And so they do health club. I feel like they've kind of refined the health club. They've gotten ahead of us a bit because they had a better facility. Now Olive has built a whole place for this, so we're launching into that just this year now. So that's growing. But at East Ridge, they get huge turnouts. And they call it dinner with a doctor. It's really kind of the same, similar thing. It depends how you want to market it. So, but that kind of puts them in a place where you have to have a physician there. I guess they've got enough contacts. And so it's like a supper club, and a physician's answering questions, giving a lecture. They have recipes. They have a really good cook there. She's great at cooking classes. It's a refined system. Everybody's got their role. And it's just an organized thing, and that church is growing. So much that they've divided a church and started another church from it. So the South Bay church has kind of come off of that church. And interesting, the East Ridge church came out of another church. So there's, a mission-minded church will want to grow to a certain extent, and then, we were told not to have very big churches. To work to the best advantage, we should, once the church gets too big, you should divide and start another one. But let me give you some advice here on how to organize a health club, and so we'll just kind of walk through these steps. It's not really very hard, but I'll just try to give you the best advice as I can. Well, you have to have a team. Number one is you got to think of who's going to be involved in this. Look, the health director or whoever's your health ministry leader here, or Johanna, you can't do it by yourself. It would not be fair to just dump all this on one person. This has got to be something where you've got a team. Okay. So you're going to need an event coordinator, right? You're going to need, and some of these positions could be multiple hats, but I would just please don't try to put this on just one or two persons. It just won't work. You need the encouragement and you need the manpower, so you're going to get burned out with it. But I like this concept. I've been a part of CHIP programs as well, and I've seen that CHIP people get so exhausted from it. It's just a lot of work. And people feel like, I just hope we don't do one of those again for a long time, because we're all just burned out from it. This should not be like that. This should be, you figure out what you can manage and be consistent with it. And it's ongoing. It's not just an event. Right? It's something that is a part of the church. So someone's going to have to be in charge of promotions, though, collecting materials, like what kind of the event coordinator might find the location, figure out the bigger picture of things, gather up, the other helpers, who's going to, the speakers and the presenters and so forth, who's going to help with this and that. And you got promotions, in charge of all the social media. I would say you get an identity. Let's just say, for example, the Better Living Center. So the Better Living, we have a social media page. maybe a web page, a landing page or something, and so we've got flyers and advertisements and things. And so that person, the material coordinator, books, literature, the things that we would need to actually run it. A moderator, someone that's good up front, that's able to kind of keep things flowing, and is good talking with the people that are joining and able to keep the meeting interesting. Then you've got your lecturers. And these are not long lectures. Usually, we'll look at it later, but I'd say like 20 minutes tops. A short health lecture, right to the point, really interesting, boom, and then move on to the next thing. They don't need to be always a physician or somebody. It could be just someone that's good on topic. It could be on natural remedies. It could be on health. It could be nutrition. It could be on some disease. It could be natural remedies. I mean, you just come up with a long list of topics. Now, another level that even Karen brought up about with the Health Expo is the idea of having health coaches. So when someone joins the health club, they have an opportunity of signing up and getting a personalized health coach. And the health coach could use that little light up your life, 7 weeks of introducing them to the different health laws of health and keep going through that with them. That would be a good tool. Or just someone that they can call, or somebody you get close to someone and say, "This is my health coach," and you say, "We're gonna talk once a week. I'm gonna see how you're doing. I'm just gonna help you set goals." So we have a little health coach training as well, so you can learn how to. Because a health coach is not so much. It's not a counselor where you're just telling them all that they need to be doing. You're kind of also helping them find out what their goals are and helping them reach those goals. And so what is the purpose here? Are you interested in weight loss? Are you interested in more exercise, getting in better shape? Are you just interested in improving your diet? Or what is it? So I want to help you achieve those goals. Right? And so that coach would be kind of a personalized thing that could really bring it up to a higher level. And that becomes a friend, right? And someone that you gain confidence in. That's really good. The health coach, that will even bring the spiritual closeness much better. Okay. Someone needs to be in charge of the food prepper. That's really the biggest part of the work is usually around cooking demonstrations, carrying around, know how much work it is, doing a cooking class, all the things that you need, pots, pans, utensils, serving things, and all the ingredients. You have to do grocery shopping, you have your list, and it's a lot of work involved in that. So you got to have hands involved. You're going to need someone on the microphone, doing with the audio, making sure you need an AV person. So that's basically the main, those are the main jobs. Like I said, you could have multiple hats, but it needs to be a team of people that are doing this. Next, in your initial planning, you've got a team ready, you meet together, pray, and decide who are you targeting. Is it just the community in general, or is there a specific, maybe you're near a university, and so you're maybe trying to get college kids, or maybe it's a retirement area, or maybe it's families. So it could be people with specific risk factors. If we're going to do several months or so, specifically on diabetes, or cycle through these different areas. So that would be more like a disease-related, specific. That would be something to consider. Or it could be for a private group. Sometimes this is a little bit more specialized, but sometimes we've signed up with businesses, and we've come in on a regular basis, and we've done health lectures for the customers. So that's, or it could be a church. Next, you could maybe target even children. Wow, we had a really good thing with cooking classes for children at Wildwood. I mean, it was crowded with kids. And if you do a good children's program, you could end up with just tons of kids from the community being part of it, and that can then bring in the parents. So that's got to be a really powerful tool. Or it could be for families, or even athletes. Okay. So once you kind of think through, who are we reaching, what demographics am I looking for, then you need to start thinking of the time to have the meetings. Usually, we'd start with the top one here, the Sunday afternoons or evenings, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It really depends, though, on the community, the culture. if it's a major city, like how long do people take when they generally get off of work, and what it take to get there. So if it's weekdays, but on Sundays, I guess, yeah, it's kind of a family day, usually a little bit earlier. But weekday evenings for working people, weekday mornings might be more like your retirement community, or families, mothers and children, or businesses, where it would be weekday mornings. Evenings would be for the workers. So you got to think like, well, who are we trying to reach here, and what time is the best time to reach them? All right. So at Wildwood, we'll be doing Sundays. You know, that's just kind of a general time. It's good, and people are more available, I guess. Then, like, well, how often are you going to meet if it's Sundays or if it's Tuesdays or whatever? Well, you could meet every week for a certain amount of time. Like in the fall, you could have like a fall series. It's every week for 1, 2, 3 months, and then maybe take a break. Eastridge does that quite a bit. They're just like, you know, or Christmas, they know they're not going to get hardly anybody over the holidays. They just shut it down and start it up again afterwards. But, I mean, you know, you might want to keep it more consistent. It's kind of nice to say, hey, it's every Sunday at 5 o'clock. That's pretty easy to remember. They don't have to guess when does it start and when doesn't. So, it could be weekly. It could be every other week. It could be once a month. So I would just say it's better to start not too aggressively, because it's really better to add than to subtract. So if you're not sure what you can manage, start with once a month. And if you get comfortable in your skin and it's going well, you know what, I think there's a lot of interest here, and I think we could handle this, well, why don't we do it every other week? Like the first and the second Sunday of the month or something like that. Or maybe it gets to where you're doing it every week. At Wildwood, we've got 100 people around there that are into health ministry, so we're planning to do it every week. But, you know, I've got a long list of people that can contribute to it. What can your church do? How much do you think you can surround? That's something you need to think about. I like the regularity of it. In Jakarta, it was regular, and that just kind of made it simple. But it's true, your attendance will go down. You know, summer times might go down a bit around holidays, especially around Christmas. It might go down quite a bit. But on the other hand, there's always people around the holidays that want to learn how to make more healthy food, like Christmas kind of, you know, family gatherings and Thanksgiving and all. So you can have themes. So rather than having one just like on diabetes or something, you could have a theme on holiday dishes, right? Or 4th of July kind of food, summer foods, or it could be breakfast, or it could be desserts, or it could be bread making, right? Or it could be hydrotherapy, it can be clay, it could be herbs. Who do you have? You know, what talents do you have to bring to the table? Location, something that I've already mentioned about. Community centers would be more neutral ground, and neutral territory, so it's not prejudice, but that's going to increase expense because then you have to rent it, right? Churches it can be depending on, you know, the dynamics. If it's working, it's working, good. But so generally, I would say that wouldn't be my first choice, but you know, it could work, and it could work here. Businesses can be a place that if your health team gets really strong, you can even go presenting to a business and say, hey, we'd like to come in and offer these classes for your employees on their breaks. So when they come in for lunch, we've got these 15-minute health talks that we get or something. We've done that. Homes. Someone's home in the community is really powerful. So if you get a really strong contact, like, you know, and you can say to them, you know, we really like to do cooking classes. Oh, I love to do cooking classes. I'm just trying to think of where we should do it. Can you think of anywhere that we could do it? And sometimes they'll say, what about my house? I say, great idea. Because then that person could invite all their friends. It's very, very, very powerful. So at Wildwood, our students go and work in different districts. They're doing evangelism every week. And so that's something that has worked, where they've gone and done cooking classes in the homes. I think it was that first reference where I was saying, even house to house, we should be teaching people in their homes. And the thing is, they can also invite their friends from the neighborhood. So that's location, then budget. Of course, there might be some finances involved, so you just kind of think that through. Is this a free thing? Or is there a charge? You know, if it's free, that's nice. But, you know, there's going to be some expenses, so is the church going to raise the money? You got to think that through. Advertisement, how's it going to be done? There may be some costs involved with that. And I just want to look at a simple program that we usually use. So let's say we begin at 6 o'clock. We're going to have 10 or 15 minutes of the moderator welcoming everybody, maybe reviewing something, talking about last week, sharing some testimonies, how did it go. Sometimes the health club will have exercise goals, like, hey, as a club, why don't we keep track of our walking or our running and walk across the United States. They put a map up of the United States and you keep track and you move it, each meeting you move it a little further, something like that. Okay, so that's like just an introduction time, songs, prayer, could be, it depends. I've seen health clubs where that's the way it is. It's a Christian group and they want to pray and they want to sing together. But if you're downtown and there's a lot of atheists and such coming, I wouldn't say, you know, everyone let's bow our heads for a word of prayer at the very introduction with all these like different atheists coming in. It might not be the timing for that. Okay, so you need to think about that. Prayers are good. I know they should know that we're Christians, but you know, feel that out. You know, they don't maybe if they come in and there's like Christians singing a bunch of hymns, they might look around like, you know, this maybe is not for me. So then a 15, 20-minute health presentation, usually that's how we would start things off, introduce the speaker, field some questions about it, and then transition into a cooking demonstration. So, at our Better Living Center at Wildwood, we have everyone, like it's on this side is going to be a demonstration, and then on the other side is set up for this would be the lecture side, and this would be the demonstration. The cooking demonstration. So while somebody's lecturing, someone on the other side has got everything set up. So everyone's going to watch. Okay, now it's time. Let's go over here, and we're going to go to our cooking demo. And so the demonstrations will be set out there, 30 minutes or so, and that's important. Sharing recipes, and then I would say this is the most important time of all of this would be the fellowship. So the social time. If everyone just comes in and listens and says, that was very nice, and then they boom, out the door, it's not achieving the purpose of it. So we want to be talking and mingling with these people and getting to know them. So you got to set time for that. It's got to be scheduled. So the best that I've seen is have some samples, some food samples. Maybe it's even a whole meal, right? So after the cooking demonstration, it's either you're going to either get a plate of food or you're going to get samples, something where everyone can sit around and you sit at their table and you're just, how do you like talking about it? I think this is really good, blah, blah, blah. So how are things going, you know? And then you just, you know, socialize with them, use your FORT skills. If you ever studied, you know, evangelism, FORT is, so we talk about family and then occupation and relationships, or religion, and then giving your testimony. Kind of just working on it, just to get to know people, socializing. That's your social time. That's the most important part. And so then like a little wrap up and final motivation, a little charge. So all that together is like an hour and a half maximum. So I don't think they should be very long. For the same reason you don't want to give a Bible study very long, because people might think, oh, I don't have time for that. Even if they like it and it's going well, try to cut it off and say, hey, we're doing this next week as well, so come back. Because if there's a danger, even if they're having a good time and they're the ones that are extending the meeting, there might be a time you just got to stop and let people go, because the next week they might say, oh, is it time for that? Last week that was like 2.5 hours. I don't have time for that. So they may not come. So I try to keep that thing professional, right through, with your social time though, that's really important, and let them go. If they stay afterwards and things are over, then that's different, right? Because they know that at least they can get out of there. But if they're held captive in there, then they might stop coming back. So let them go about an hour and a half or so. Those are the main things that I would just want to point out, share. Just want to ask if there's any questions. So I've been going through this talking about health clubs. Did anything come to your mind? any idea, anything that wasn't clear, any question that you might have about health clubs? Yes?
With the gentleman preacher at the gym who were trying to get this movie, did you get, how did you know that? Was that from your surveys and something like that?
Those men were from the Health Expo. Yeah, so at the Health Expo, we were inviting them. We'd like to invite you guys to a stop smoking. We were just letting them know that there was a stop smoking seminar, and we got a good turnout right away from that. Yeah. So there was like 20, 25 people like right off the bat. So that was a case of knowing your demographic. Like, we already knew that these guys smoke, so that's a good starting point. Would you like to live longer? Come to our seminar. Karen, yeah.
I was just going to add something. You know, when I did a series in my home church in New Jersey, a series of cooking schools.
Yeah.
At the end, what I did was I did a survey. It was like, you know, just to see the interest of the person. But one of the key questions that I added in there, and this is how Ron and I translated this, our health club, let's call it our cooking school, to Bible studies. It was, would you be interested in a Bible study? And you know that for us, we got half of the people. I had 27 people every week with this cooking school, and we had 12 people, and of those 12 people ended up being baptized. I'm sorry.
8 people were baptized from those
After
studies.
just doing a cooking school from a help summer, we were trying to really implement the cycle of evangelism.
Yeah.
We had a speaker, a doctor come in and do it at our local hospital, which was a non-Adventist hospital. Hospital wanted to be known for health; they didn't want to be known for sickness. So they were like, they let us have the room, they let us have everything for free. We did this 3-day seminar. He promoted, hey, meet Karen, she'll do a cooking school. We did a cooking school for a few weeks, and then in one of those, I made so many relationships with those people. You know, I still talk to some of those people today.
Yeah.
Not even just the baptized ones, but just even some people that continue to go to things through our church as we continue with that cycle of evangelism. So even like to that point, like, you know, there's a point where you can actually do a health club even, like, we didn't do ongoing forever and ever. We did like a shorter time, but we translated that into Bible studies, which then was an evangelistic series, which got physics, etc.
I'm sorry, I didn't use this.
Was that you? Sorry. Yeah, that's a great example, because it really, how long does it take to make friends with them? So that might,
It took like this quick. We
right.
became like friends with
Yeah.
people. They all were,
Yeah.
that whole unit of 27 people became like a family in 4 weeks. Like they were all,
Yeah.
and they were talking to each other, and it really involved us.
So once you're friends with them, it's so easy to invite them to, you know,
And that's
we're having a Bible study. If you guys want to come, you know, it's not you're not putting pressure on them. It's like, this is what we're doing. People are looking for social interaction. That's something that this last year, wow, I mean, people were just like starving for social interaction because they were so bound up. And if you're not really integrated in a strong church, whatever denomination, people will look for that kind of social interaction or club. So this can be that for them. You know, that might be all the fellowship that they get. And so then it's like, well, would you like more of that? Like we study, the health club's on Tuesdays, or Sundays, but every Wednesday we get together and study the Bible, same place. It's like, yeah, let's come check it out.
We translated it from every Monday cooking school, so now we're doing a Bible study every Monday. And then Ron and I did like 13 weeks straight, which translated into an evangelistic series, you know. And then even those who didn't go to do the Bible study and stuff, we would invite them to like a community guest day at our church. And it just really, we really fostered a great relationship with the people in our community.
Thank you. Yes?
If you do a health club, is there like an ideal size you want to try to have it stay at?
Of people attending?
Yeah.
Well, 12 is good,
Yeah.
but 20 is also good.
Small better than large, or, I mean, does it matter if it's a larger group?
Well, if you have like 50 to 70 people coming, yeah, it can get harder to get closer to everybody, so you're gonna need, but if it's every week for a long period, eventually, you know, you get to know people. I wouldn't want to turn people away. I'd be happy if 50 people came in, but I don't know if we're really targeting. You might end up with a question like, do we keep doing it only if 3 people are coming? And I hope that's not something you get faced with. But yeah, ideally for growing relationships is, I've just kind of felt like 12 to 20 is can create a family atmosphere. Once you start getting beyond 20, 25, and you're up in the 30s, it's harder to create a family atmosphere. So it has strengths and weaknesses, but you get to meet more people, and maybe, I don't want to turn people away too. Yeah. The advice for organizing a team, well, usually this sort of thing would kind of get spearheaded by the health coordinator, and that person would need to start recruiting people, I guess. Have a little health weekend at the church, or go up front and make some speeches, see who's interested. We're looking for this, we're looking for that. Maybe a little printout, who's going to help us. So just got to look around and ask. Got to do some recruiting. Sure. Well, if it's a church, everyone, you should know everybody at least. So, yeah, I would say you want to choose people that are, have a good chance of succeeding at it. You want mission-minded people, but you also don't want to turn people away. There's different functions. Some people, maybe they're just great at coming in and helping, setting everything up. Other people are great greeters, just welcoming people. Some maybe just on the computers and the AV. Everyone's got a talent they can use. So it's good to try to get everybody involved, but yeah, you want people that will have a good influence there. So
there's a quote that says, "We become overcomers by helping others overcome." And so we need to realize that there are people among us that also need to have the gospel.
Yeah, and like a health expo. Well, okay, this may be an example, maybe where she's leading with this question. Should you have people that are, eating meat and are living a completely different lifestyle helping at a health expo? I've been confronted with that a lot. I said, absolutely. Because I've seen them change during the health expo. And the health expo is kind of an event that, so let's say there's this guy, not into health at all. He's barbecue chicken and everything, and now we're asking him, you want to come help out at the health expo? He's like, well, I don't, I'm not a vegetarian or nothing. So, well, you could help at some area. And so he ended up helping at, I don't know, the air booth or something. Okay, but while he was there, people were asking him questions, and someone from the community was like, wow, this is so amazing, this is exactly what I need. I know I need to become it's like, so how long have you been a vegetarian, He's like, but these community people were putting them on the spot, and actually it's really good, because the guy came up to me after, he's like, whoa, man, I got like a wake-up call, and he pushed him to actually become more interested, he had a positive, so let him draw him in, because when they see the power of it too, there was one time this pastor was like, this was in Brazil, this pastor was not really into the whole health expo thing. He didn't think it was going to work. So he was, and I needed his help. I was like, Pastor, can you help me get a venue? I didn't know the area. We want to do this health expo. He's never seen or known what health expo was. It's like, okay, I'm going to get the venue for you. And he found it for me. And he was supposed to do advertising. So I said, I've got some money, I can pay for the advertising. And we were doing a whole 1-month light course. This was the final thing. And I came to him the health expo was going to be on Sunday, and I saw him on Thursday, and I asked him, I said, did you get the advertisements out? And he looked at me, he's like, oh, I didn't do it. I said, you didn't do anything? He's like, no, I'm really sorry, maybe we need to call off that health expo. I was like, oh, man, it's one thing I need you to do, man. I was really frustrated. I was like, to me, this is like something the students need. They needed to see health in action, and do this health expo together. So I was like, we got to do it. So I said, well, we can still advertise. We got 2 days left. He's like, no, it's not enough time. You're not going to get anybody there. I said, no, well, let's just try it anyway. He's like, no, it's a waste of time. I said, please, Pastor, what do you have to lose? We're going to pay all the expenses. We just did a whole 1 month training. We got to do the South Expo. He's like, okay, all right. So I gave him the money, and he already had it. So he paid the guy on a motorcycle with this big loudspeaker to drive around, announcing this Health Expo. And then we cut up our little cards and we went door to door, inviting people. So just 2 days. Friday was blasting, with this motorcycle guy. And then Sabbath, we went all door to door inviting people. And so we had 2 days for it to advertise. And then we show up at the event. And there was one more job that pastor needed to do. He needed to get our chairs for us. We go up there, he wasn't there, and there wasn't any chairs there either. So we're like, he just completely ditched us. So we were running around trying to find chairs, okay? And so chairs were getting brought in, so we had this hodgepodge of all these different kinds of chairs at this thing. And the people started lining up, okay? Like it was like, they were early, right? So we were running around, hey, this is going to work. People are coming. We got to get ready here. So we were getting all our stations ready, running around like crazy, trying to get this, trying to get that. We opened up the door. Place was just crowded with people. 300 people pushed in there for this Health Expo. We had been going on for 2 hours. This is a Sunday morning. I don't know why we did Sunday morning. This was just what the people said that we should do. So I think it was at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Anyway, the pastor shows up at 11. And I was like doing a massage or something. I look over at the door and I see him come in. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He looked around, he was just... I was like, hold the pen. I was like, I'm going to go talk to the elder. So I said, Pastor, welcome. It's so good that you're here. I'm glad to see you. He's like, James, what's going on here? He's like, this is the Health Expo. This is the right arm of the gospel here. He said, I've been working evangelism in this town for the last 8 years. And I have never had one event with this many people come, ever. This is impossible. It's like, I have no idea. I'm just shocked. I'm stunned. I didn't think anyone would come to this. I'm sorry I'm late, and I'm sorry I botched this and I botched that. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a converted man. And I'm behind this. He's like, I see it now, and I'm so sorry. I dropped the ball on this thing. He rolled up and said, where can I help? And then he's like, when is the next one? I will not let you out. When is the next one? I'm excited. I've never seen anything like this before. And he had done programs with weeks of advertising. I mean, he had spent tons of money and things, and he gets lit up just a few people. And in 2 days, with like $100, we had all of these people crowding in there. He was shocked. The power of the health message. He never forgot that. It impacted his ministry for the good. So anyway, yeah, and it's good for everybody to be there. Even the doubters and the naysayers. Try to get them in there because they may not. It's different when you're there and you're participating and you're seeing it and seeing it work. It's very encouraging. Okay, I think we need to wrap up here. Unless there's one last quick one, anybody? Yes?
Is there such a thing as home-based health club or something?
Yeah, you can do it out of your house. Sure, why not? So home was one of the locations we talked about. I generally thought of, sometimes it's in a community member's home. That's really good. But if it's out of your own home, I've seen that too. There was this lady, she's a physician, she lives around Boston. She's involved with ASI a lot. She's got a twin. I can't remember what her name is now. Dr. Andy. So she does cooking classes in her home, and she invites everyone in her kind of community around there. Really, she does a good job, and she gets people. So she's known. Everybody knows her, and so she just walks around. Hey, why don't you come on over? We're having a cooking class over at my house. That's just very, very good. It's not. It's more informal, and it's more personal. So that's great. Anyone else? Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for participating this afternoon. I hope that was a help to you all. And we'll be here tomorrow. We're going to start at 9. We're going to go through, we brought some things with us here. We're going to show you how to do Russian steam baths in your house and all different kinds of hydrotherapy things and share some of our experiences with it. And so I hope you can be here. So that's going to be tomorrow. We're going to talk about immune boosting, how to battle against viral infections. And so looking forward to that. So I hope to see you all here. Why don't we stand and have a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for the Sabbath afternoon to give study to methods of your work. Thank you for giving us such a clear blueprint for outreach and spreading your message. Just pray for everyone that's attending here, some maybe from this church and maybe some from some others. Just pray that these experiences, these testimonies would point us, give us some ideas of what we can do. And just pray that you would bless each one here. And thank you again for all your blessings today. Go with us now, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much, everyone.
Look it up.